So my name is Tyler Maloney. I'm the director of inside sales and sales operations here at Cerba Research, and been with the company for a little over a year. Been in the industry for over 10 years now. Sounds like a very long time, but to me, yeah, been in the industry for over 10 years, and actually have used Zymewire for a good chunk of my career. Yeah, so I would say that the one of the things that's really nice about when you onboard somebody and they're using Zymewire is you have all it's kind of like the like Napster back in the day, not to date myself too much, right? But it's kind of like the sharing of information, right? It's like you can go in and there's feeds that somebody's already built, and you can take a part of that feed and modify it to your territory and save it, and right. So it's like there's certain therapeutic areas, or if there's certain phases that you want to hone in on, or funding, or whatever, you don't have to start from scratch on a lot of this stuff. So it's like the more users that you have, the better, really, because it's like
Hmm.
I don't have to go in and, you know, start with a blank search and add a million different filters to get down to what I want. I can go look at one of Nicole's feeds that she's already built and already spent the time doing, and I can go, okay, well, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I just need to tweak the territory, which I have my own territory. So I just put my territory in there, save it as my feed, and I'm off and running, right? So it's like,
Hmm.
that kind of that group sharing of information makes it really easy. And again, I think the more team members you have, the easier it is to say, like, wow, this person spent a bunch of time going in this very specific direction on the search. This is great. This would be really helpful to me. I'm going to save it as my search, and I'm going to get now
Hmm.
notifications for my territory about this. So yeah, I think that it makes things a lot easier the way that you guys have it set up to be able to kind of share information back and forth with team members. Yeah, I think the biggest issue that I had when I first started was really when I first started at Cerba, we had years and years and years, and some people run into this, some people don't. I've worked at organizations where we've been one Salesforce org, and I've worked at now places where we've kind of inherited multiples, right? So
Hmm.
from a outreach and marketing standpoint, the biggest issue I was coming across was like, man, we got a lot of people in our database. What's real and what isn't, right? And that
Hmm.
was kind of the first task that I had was like, oh, okay, I know how to do outreach. I know how to get this engine running. Looks like there's a decent amount of people in here. Like, am I good to go, or is this really not the right audience, right? And so
Hmm.
I honestly couldn't really get started with the process that I wanted to put in place until I really got that figured out. Like, okay, how many of these companies are active? How many have received funding in the last X amount of years? Like let's do some qualification of the database, right? To see what am I actually working with? Do I have something stable and that I can rely on and trust, or do I not? And the answer ended up being that I did not, right? I didn't have nearly as many prospects as I would have hoped that I could really trust were the right target audience. So that project has now, been taken care of. We've, through using Zyme, trimmed down kind of what is and isn't kind of our target audience, and now we've started to now build that back up to where we have as many people as I thought we had when I first started, right? And then some. But it really took the design for me to be able to really qualify these things out, right? And to set kind of rules and different things to be able to look at, you know, X amount of people. I'll just say it was a lot, right? Looking at
Hmm.
thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, and being able to say, okay, what do I actually want to market to? What do I actually want to send outreach to? And that was the biggest kind of blocker. And again, it took the ability to use Zymewire to help me qualify those prospects that we had in the system. No, it was a catch-all, right? So it's like
Okay.
we had like site contacts, and we had all, think I'm not trying to market to certain like people, right? They had like financial context. They had like things like that. That it's like we didn't have a way of really honing down like, okay, who are we trying to market to? Who are we trying to set
Mm.
meetings with? Who are we trying to get proposals from? And here's this giant database of people. What is real and what isn't, right? Like who, how do we define that, right? Without going through tens of thousands of people one by one and,
Mhm.
disqualifying them, right? Which there was some of that happened after I narrowed down, you know, into a smaller database, but needed the qualification, the qualifiers from Zymewire to really help say, okay, well, if a company hasn't received funding or doesn't have any activity in the last 3 years, we're just going to go ahead and move on from them, right? Let's go ahead and pull them out of our mailable database. Like things like that really help just take chop large sections of that down to where I felt again much more comfortable with the database that I had. Yeah. So the contrast is pretty crazy. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can get information about companies, right? There's a lot of different services out there that you can purchase that give you insights, but how do you action off those insights? So if you wanted to, if I was tasked with saying like, okay, hey Tyler, we want to send a oncology specific outreach to California with companies that have received funding in the last year and a half, right? Okay, well now I have a database of, I'll just make up a number, 100,000 people, right? How many of those people fit that criteria? And the workflow when you don't have a tool like Zymewire or especially fields like Zoudini is extremely cumbersome. I mean, you can get the company names, but then to then go into Salesforce, you may not have them named the same way that this list that you're
Mm.
getting is named. So there's no matching, right? So you got to spend probably an hour going through these names of companies, and there's commas in it, it screws up Salesforce, right? I mean, if it's Inc. or LLC in Salesforce but not on your list, right? They just don't align. So you're spending hours building a list of people to put onto a campaign because again, you just have a high level list of company names, but you can't really action off of that without a lot of work. The next kind of iteration that we had was, being able to pull and build campaigns directly out of Zymewire, which is great, right? The ability to put all your search criteria in, generate a list to a campaign, upload that. I mean, we're talking going from multiple 2 to 2.5 hours to 15 minutes. You can build a campaign, right? Which is
Mhm.
great. Then the next step, which is something that we've just kind of incorporated over the last year here, maybe even less than that, is bringing in the fields from Zyme through Zoudini. So when you talk about therapeutic areas, when you talk about funding, there's all kinds of different fields that you can pick, and depending on your organization, some are going to be important to you and some of them aren't. So we've picked the kind of the five that are the most important to us, and that makes the campaign building itself way easier, right? We can build our mailable database and we can set it up with whatever criteria, by funding, by therapeutic area, by whatever. And then we just immediately build campaigns. Now we're down to, instead of 2.5 hours, now we're down to like 5 minutes to build a campaign, right? And
Mhm.
the more campaigns that you're trying to build, the more specific you're trying to get to sending, messaging specific to things that people are working on, the more campaigns you have to build. So if you have to build more campaigns that take 2.5 hours, the manpower that it takes is crazy, right? So to be
Mhm.
able to narrow that down to 5 minutes is quite an advantage. Yeah, again, this has been one of the biggest evolutions since I started over 10 years ago. Was you sent a large scale outreach about all the things that you could do, just this general wide net to a company. And you know I think that post COVID internet marketing became even more competitive, right? Because we can't get in front of clients, we can't physically go there, so we got to set, the main
Mhm.
form of contact through email marketing. So people really are seeing the same thing that was successful in 2014, 2015 when I first started, right? Was like send a big generalized message and hopefully one of those things resonates and people aren't getting a ton of emails and there isn't, all these other things that, kind of stop emails from getting through to clients. So they're going to see everything and hopefully something resonates and, you know, just volume the hell out of them, right? And it's like that's not really how things are anymore, right? It's like you need to provide value right off the bat, and I think that that's where the tools like Zymewire and the different things that we're able to pull from that really, when we're sending messaging, obviously we're not getting so specific that we're talking, in depth about their pipeline or different things like that. You could, right? The tool will allow you to, but just being able to send something that is, not this generic email. It is more specific to what they're doing, provides a lot more value. We've seen better open rates, we've seen better responses. It really, when you're not talking about what you do, but you're trying to provide value to the client and what they're working on, it's quite a bit different response. Yeah, I think if you are a smaller company, and 10 years ago I worked at a very small company, right? It's like if you're competing in a landscape, you're competing against people that have a much more mature kind of engine or outreach engine built up. So I think it's just as important if you're starting from being a small company that like, okay, we're just not putting our database together to have that ability to segment and to be able to send specific messaging. And yeah, it's going to be easier for you to just send blanket emails out, right, that are in general about like, hey, we're this new guy on the block and here's some of the things that we can do. But you're competing against companies that are way more mature, that have, again, a much tighter focus on what kind of messaging they're trying to send. And they've been around for a lot longer, right? They have name recognition, they have all these things. So it's like, I think it's probably even more important for a new organization to make sure they have all that stuff dialed in, opposed to just saying, okay, well, we're just going to send emails and then we'll figure the rest out later. It's like, no, you got to get that right from the beginning. And then, of course, we've talked about for the last hour here, right? Like of how important it is to a more mature organization and structure to have that. But again, I don't know how you start off without having that information being fed in from Zach. So I think it's maybe more important if you're trying to get your name out there to not, it's your first impression to any potential new client, right? So it's like if you're small, they don't know who you are and your messaging is broad and not specific to what they're, working on. I think you're gonna get drowned out by the, more mature organizations that are really focusing on sending better content. Yeah, I mean, I think that it just allows you to do more important things, right? Like if it's making sure that you're following up with somebody when you said staying on top of your tasks, adding more prospects, finding out when prospects have moved from one company to another. It's just those kind of like, maybe more administrative type of tasks that kind of like fall to the bottom of like the priority list because you're trying to get out, you're trying to build these specific campaigns, you're trying to do these other things. It's like those things are also very important to the overall outcome. And when you're spending multiple hours a week building a campaign that could take 5 minutes, sometimes those things fall by the wayside. And it's like those are things that should and need to be done that also produce meetings and things like that that we're trying to obtain. And if you're not able to get to those, it's just like, I don't know, it allows it to where it feels like there's not as much things that are falling through the cracks, right? Like those things to me are still super important. I know they're lower on the priority scale, but it gives them the bandwidth to make sure that they're doing all the basics correctly as well. Yeah, I think how user friendly the platform is a differentiator, right? I think I've used other platforms and it's almost like they're too smart for their own good, right? There's so many things that you can filter in on. It's like I don't know, you know, unless we're going to be sending individual one-off emails, right? Which is a lot of work. I don't know how in depth we need to get on some of this stuff, right? And then to navigate through all of it is so extremely difficult. So the fact that Zymewire is so user friendly to me is a huge advantage. Literally, when we mentioned it on the onboarding section a little bit here, it's like it doesn't take a lot to be able to train somebody on how to use it. It's so user friendly. Like, okay, here's your search. What phases are you looking for? Therapeutic areas, funding, whatever it is. I mean, it's very easy to find and very easy to execute on. So, to me, I think that's a huge differentiator. And then the biggest thing for Zymewire, and the reason why I keep coming back to you guys, no matter where it is that I work, is that you can action off the data. It isn't just, hey, you get this information and okay, good luck with it. There's a direct API integration within Salesforce. So it's like I can take that, I can organize the accounts that I have with this information. I can look at just contacts, I can look at just leads, I can look at just accounts, whatever it is that I'm trying to do with this information. I have all of my account IDs, lead IDs, like all these things that allow me to where if I want to mass update information or if I want to pull everybody into a campaign, like I can action off of it because there's a tie through to Salesforce to where every other program I've used, there's no tie together with Salesforce at all. It's here's the company information, here's some people that you could be working with, go do whatever you want with that, right? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
okay, that's great, but I need to be able to at scale with a large team be able to have them do this. And they're, you shouldn't need to be a Salesforce expert to like take the information that you're getting from these systems and apply that to whatever kind of outreach that you're trying to do. So Zymewire just allows you to be able to very quickly, very easily be able to action off the data that you're getting. Again, I want to be able to trust the information that I'm getting because it's like, again, if the more specific we want to get about campaigns, the more specific we want to get towards messaging, I don't want to send something that's oncology specific or whatever, name something, right? Name a topic. And, the response on the other end is we don't even work on this, right? Like, why are you
Yeah.
sending us this? This is not in our pipeline at all, right? So it's like, obviously, have really thoroughly vetted that. And I've never come across a time where it's been an issue where, hey, we think this company has funding or they're in this phase or they have this therapeutic area and you send a message about it and the person's like, what are you talking about? Like this is not correct. So no, I really trust the information that comes out of Zymewire. Obviously we have vetted it in the past and we continue to spot check stuff, but I think it's really, really accurate information. I think the non-negotiable is database segmentation. Like you just have to be able to segment your database. Again, you can't, we talked about it a little bit, right? You can't just send this broad net of information to people. It needs to be specific. And it doesn't only need to be specific for outreach purposes, right? It needs to be specific for the reps that are actually selling to these companies. So, through Zoudini, some of these other things that we've talked about is they're also able to look at their account lists with some of these, bits of information that we're pulling straight across that we use for building campaigns, but they can also use it for their account planning purposes too, which has really been helpful recently, right? We have kind of a structure of how we're trying to move accounts up and get in front of certain accounts and how we're able to say, okay, these are accounts that I'm working with, here's the accounts that I want to work with, and then these are the top accounts I want to work with, and then here's everybody else that I'd like to still work with, but these are my main priorities kind of in the middle here, right? So being able to segment that database, being able to pull in information about those companies is a non-negotiable. I mean, you can't just have account names and no other reference points. And I think that that's the biggest trap that some people fall into when it comes to setting up their databases. They'll have an account, they'll have like maybe what, where it's located at. They may have some very basic information in there about the account, but they don't have any ability to segment that database. And if you fall short in that area and you don't have the ability to segment, I just don't see how you can be successful when it comes to running campaigns or for account planning. Like I just that there's just not enough information to be able to put forth like a legitimate plan of action of how you're going to outreach to them or how the rep is specifically going to try and get in front of key accounts or what they want to be key accounts. If you don't have that segmentation, I don't know how you plan. I'm a rep. I have 500 accounts. What accounts are doing what? What accounts are doing, have this amount of funding? What phases are they in? If you don't have that information and you're just giving a rep 500 accounts, it's like, I don't see how they can be successful. I don't see how an inside sales rep can be successful supporting them if they don't have that information about the accounts themselves. So the biggest trap to me would be just like not having just doing the basics, right? Just building an account, putting very basic information, but not connecting it to any kind of database that feeds more specifics about where that company's at, what they're working on, funding information. There needs to be a tie together between those two things, or else there's no way you're going to be successful. Evolves, and you guys do a great job of letting us know, like, hey, we have new features, we have new fields that we've incorporated through Zoudini that you can pull over. We have, new ways of filtering. And I'll also say that you guys are great about like there's certain things that for my organization have been important for us to look at. And I've been on calls and be like, hey, it'd be great if like whenever I pull these lists, I take the funding over the last 3 years because you have broke down 1, 2, and 3. And I really just total it because I want to know what the total is over the last 3 years. And they're like, oh, we'll just build that as a field for you. So you don't have to do that. I'm like, oh, great. Or, hey, we're really interested in knowing about these type of companies. And they're like, oh, great. Well, that's pretty easy for us. We'll just build a filter or a field that you can add to any of your exports and things like that. So again, really focusing on segmenting more and really just excited about the updates. I know I'm getting updates from Peyton and Aaliyah of new things that are on the forefront. You guys are evolving and it helps us be able to evolve as well.